सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयम् यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। We are starting a new Prakaranam, chapter 15. This is called Nanyadanyat Prakaranam. Anyat Prakaranam. Anyatna. Anyat one thing. Anyatna cannot become another one. So these are the starting words of the first verse of this chapter. And so it is called Nanyadanyat Prakaranam. The discussion starts with the topic of the 14th chapter. Nanu na svabhava siddha atma. So an objection is raised here because the earlier chapter established that svabhava siddha atma. Atma, the self, consciousness, is Shuddha, pure, Svabhavatah, by nature, and therefore Asangha, unconnected, Alipta, untainted. And the samsara that is seen in this consciousness itself is not really there. Therefore, when the Shruti negates samsara in Atma, it is not negating something that is there. It is negating something that is thought to be there. And the last verse says that this negation also does not bring about any change in Atma, because it is not that Atma was samsari and has become a samsari. Atma was asamsari even when thought to be samsari. Recognized to be a samsari, that's all. So this is what is meant by all technical language, but this is what it is. So svabhava shuddha atmana, the objection is, this cannot be, that Atma is pure by the very nature. Tatha sati sadhana vayathyat, you are already Brahman. If you are already pure, Brahman, limitless, what remains to be done? Sadhana vayathyat, if you already are what you want to be, already are a Brahman, don't have to become Brahman, then what is the role of sadhana? The means of attaining Brahman. It becomes meaningless. Sadhana vayasya. Sadhanam, the means of becoming Brahman, becomes meaningless. Like karma, upasana, all of these will become meaningless. Kintu samsaya. So if Atma is not Swabhava Shuddha, then how is Atma, we ask? Kintu samsari Swabhava eva san. Atma by nature is samsari, is bound, and therefore limited, possessing all the samsara dharma. Ashanaya pipase, jara mrityu, shokam moham, jara mrityu. That's what Atma possesses. Shoka, moha, jara, mrityu, ashanaya pipasa. Jnana dhanadi sadhana anusthanena. Yes, Brahman is Swabhava Shuddha Brahma Swarupa. That Brahma is Swabhava Shuddham. Yes, Brahman is ever pure. Atma is not pure. Because you experience Atma is hungry, thirsty, grieving. So Atma is samsari by nature. Jnana dhyanadi sadhana anusthanena. Anusthanam or performance of sadhanam, the means such as jnana, dhyana. So by jnanam, by dhyanam, you make Atma pure, and thus Atma becomes Brahman. Ekadeshiya pratipedere. That ekadeshiya. So those who accept non-duality in a part, they accept non-duality in the state of freedom, but not in the state of bondage. In state of freedom, they accept non-duality of Jiva and Brahman. But when bound, Jiva is different, Brahman is different. What Vedanta teaches is that Atma is Brahman whether bound or not, when it appears to be bound. They say Atma is samsari, becomes Brahma by sadhanam. Because if Atma is not samsari, why do we feel samsara? I feel hungry, thirsty, all kinds of things I feel. So to justify that, say no, Atma is samsari by nature. Tanna shraddheya mumukshubhi. This view or contention should not be accepted by the mumukshus. Tasya shruti yukti badhitatvat. That Atma has samsaritvam. The Atma is samsari, is badhitatvat, is negated by the shruti as well as yukti. So this prakranam basically would be devoted to establishing the asamsaritvam. Even when you feel samsari, you are a samsari. Even when the 10th man feels this is not 10th man, he is 10th man. Then what is the role of dhyana, sadhana, jnanam? That will be talked about. It is not to achieve what is not achieved, it is to remove obstacles, apparent obstacles to what is already achieved, in recognition of what is already achieved. So now that somebody says that Jiva is different from Brahma, the question is asked by the Siddhantin today, Ekadeshi, Jiva Brahmanaho Atyannam Bhedayishyate Kimva Bheda Bhedau. Please tell us, when you say that Jiva is different from Brahma, then Atyantam Bhedayishyate. Are they completely different from each other? Kimva Bheda Bhedau. Oh, there's both Bheda as well as Abheda. Bheda means difference, abheda, non-difference. Meaning in one state it is non-difference, not difference, other state non-difference. Is what you mean? That's what they say. That the waves are one with water in the state of pralaya or causal state, and they are different. Waves are different from each other in the state of the karya. State of karan, they are one. So, na antyaha, meaning that the bheda bhedu, bheda and abheda, that kind of relationship between Brahman and Jiva is not possible. Viruddha svabhavataya brahmahamiti ekarupa dhyana jnana asambhavat. You say that Jiva has to become Brahman, has to gain identity by dhyanam, aham brahmasmi, aham brahmasmi, aham brahmasmi. In jnanam, aham brahmasmi. But how can you say aham brahmasmi? How can you meditate upon two entities that are opposed to each other? If Tyanta Bheda is there, if they are totally separate, then you can't meditate aham brahmasmi. Tasambhaveta, when that meditate, you say that dhyana is a means of Jiva becoming Brahman, but that you cannot, because you cannot say aham brahmasmi, aham and Brahma are totally different. Therefore, how can you even meditate like that I am Brahman? How can you meditate upon the oneness of the two? Tadasambhaveja asamsare brahmabhava phala anishpatteheti. Therefore, if dhyanam and jnanam, which are the means of becoming Brahman, they are not possible if Jiva is totally different from Brahman. You can't know the two different things as one. You cannot visualize the two different things as one. So jnanam, dhyana are not possible. So sadhana are not possible. Therefore, the goal of Brahma, Bhava, Phala, Nishpatti. So Nishpatti is the attainment of Brahma Bhava, the Phala, the result of Jiva becoming Brahma. The accomplishment of that result won't be possible. Iti manasi nidhaya, that means that this paksha of bheda bheda is just untenable. Meaning that the author does not see the need of establishing that bheda bheda is wrong, because you can think that jnanam dhyanam is not possible. And therefore that paksha is not tenable anyway. Doesn't need to be argued. Adya doshamaha. Atyanta bheda is there. Then the verse says nanyad anyad bhavet. So let us read the verse. Nanyad anyad bhavet yasmat. Nanyat kinchit vichintayed. Anyasyanyatma bhavehi. Nashastasya dhruvo bhavet. Na anyat anyat bhavet. Anyat one thing, anyat another thing. One thing cannot become another thing that is different from itself. Already said, Kita Brahmanyaya, that by dhyanam, that Kita, the worm, becomes Brahmana, a wasp. A worm becoming wasp, that's a very famous thing. That is process of becoming, one thing becoming other. Vedanta says that that is not possible. And yet if the worm is different from wasp, then worm cannot become wasp. No, anyat anyat bhavet. One thing cannot become something else. So all these, that means Vedantin will not accept all these miracles. Turning water into milk and water into ghee, and so many stories are there. of turning one thing into other, see, logically it is not possible. You can create a delusion in mind of somebody that this is ghee, where it is water. That you can do. But you cannot turn one thing into other. You can create the appearance or Brahma into other. Anyway, so these people are very, as I said, very firm in their view that all these miracles of turning one to the other is just, they are not possible. Anyway, that's not the point here, but it is Jiva, if different from Brahman, cannot become Brahman. Nanyat kinchit vichinde. Therefore, do not be influenced by the view of these people who say that Jiva is different from Brahman. Nanyat kinchit, do not vichinte. Do not think of anything other than Aham Brahmasmi. Why? Anyasya anyatma bhavehi. If one thing becomes altogether different, nasastasya dhruva bhaved. If A becomes B, then after become one, there remains B. A has to gone completely for them to become B, or B has to be gone completely for them to become A. The two separate things, when they become one, what remains is one only. So what happens to the other one? Nashastasya dhruva bhavet. Then Jiva will be destroyed if it becomes Brahman. Then who becomes Brahman? Who has the benefit of becoming one with Brahman? That's the idea. Nahi svabhava bhavanam vyavarted, etc. Prakriti anyatha bhava na kathanchit bhavishyati. So Tika says, na anyat bhaved yasmat. There is a yasmat, since. Yasmat anyat na bhaved. Yasmat anyat means one thing. That is jiva rupam. Sthitam sat. An entity that obtains as jiva. Anyat means Brahmana bhaved. So what obtains right now as jiva cannot become other, namely Brahman. Tadrupa sthiti virodhat. Because one cannot have two states, two contradictory states. One cannot be simultaneously Jiva and Brahman for them to become one. Tatha tadeva brahmana anyat jivarupam vastu nashtam sat anyat brahmana bhaved. So same thing. That Jiva who is different from Brahma cannot become Brahma. If Jivatvam is its nature, Sat, then it cannot change that nature, it cannot become someone else, something other than Brahman. Nashtatvadeva tasya brahmabhavam praptu bhavaditi. By becoming Brahman, the Jiva is gone, no more that. Brahmabhavam praptu bhavad. Then nobody remains so that in the state of Brahman. Because Jiva has become Brahman, Jiva is no more there, then who attains the state of Brahman? Brahmevasvan Brahma apyariti shruti virodas futayavadi natra udaharudha. Says Upanishad, Brahmaevasan Brahma apyariti. Who is already Brahman becomes Brahman. Sayatat Brahmaveda Brahmaiva bhavati. Sahayotat Paramam Brahmaveda Brahmaiva bhavati. Upanishad says one who becomes Brahma, knows Brahman, becomes Brahma. Like the one who knows 10th man becomes 10th man. So Viroda or the contradiction of the Shruti statement is so clear that Viroda we don't have to state here. Natra udahrutaha. In this case, we do not have to quote or illustrate that, because that virodha with Shruti is very clear. So Shruti is and Yukti virodha. First Shruti virodha is stated, then Yukti virodha will be stated. And Yukti is one thing cannot become other one, because then one is gone, other one is, then that's why. Yasmadevam Shruti Yukti viruddhamidam matam. Since this mata that Jiva is different from Brahman and becomes Brahma is opposed to Shruti as well as Yukti. Tasmat nanyat kinchit vichintayet kinchit ishan matanapi anyat brahmayati na vichintayet. That Brahman is slightly, even slightly different from Jiva. Even a smile or minute difference between the two also one should not accept and think about. Should not meditate that way. Mumukshuhu, the one who is mumukshu, one who desires moksha, should never start with this. Bheda bhavanat somityasau bhavana bheda pavani mata. So Ramana Maharshi says that soham iti abhav aso bheda bhavana, soham, start that way. Whatever you do, therefore, start with non-duality, which happens to be the truth. Even if you function in the realm of duality. Deho devaleh proktah jivo devas sanatah tyajit ajnana nirmalim soham bhavena pujayet. So Vedanta will say even in the puja also, even though puja involves the duality of the one who worships and one who is worshipped, still in the mind have this bhavana. Then how should you think? Kintu ahameva brahma, brahmaiva ahamiti. I am Brahman and Brahman is I, both ways, Otherwise they can relationship of part and whole and stuff like that. No. There is a total absolute identity in the primary sense. I am Brahman and Brahman is I. So equation is both ways. Iti bhedopamartena ekaromeva atmastu chintahet. Atma ityeva. So vijaniya, one should know that I am Atma. That's how one should all the time meditate. Not as separate from Brahman, not that I have become Brahma, not that I accomplished Brahma, that I am Brahma. And if I start that way, then I create the ground for discovering the fact that I am Brahman. If I start with the ground that I am not Brahman, then I would never discover it. Then these chamatkaras or these miracles are brought here. Nanu anyasyapi anyatpada dushta sadhana vishesha sadhya anyasyapi anyatpada dushta. We do find that in our day-to-day life. Anyasya, one thing becomes something else. Anyatmata, becoming something else. Sadhana vishesha sadhya. When there are particular sadhana or means are adopted, then we find in practical life also one thing becoming another thing. Yatha aushadha vishesha yogad tamradehepi suvarnatmata. Yatha aushadha vishesha yogad. So tamra means copper. That copper becomes gold when copper comes in contact with a specific aushadha. Well, there is a footnote here again now. Rasaviddhamaya swarnam yatha bhavati sarvada yena kenachit sadhaneneva tatha jiva shiva bhavet yadi kechis swamohena pravadanti tu vadena, from Suta Samhita. Rasaviddhamaya swarnam. That swarnam, when it is totally soaked into rasa, or that is the mercury. Apparently said that when the copper, mercury penetrates that copper, then Swarnam Bhavati, the copper gets transformed into gold. So this is what is meant by Aushadha Vishesha Yoga. So there are Aushadhis, Mantra, Mani, Aushadhi, those lot of things are there which bring about a change, a transformation. Tamra, Dehe, Tamra and others also, Suvarnada, Suvarnatmada, they change their Atma. They change the essential nature from Tamra to Suvarna. Tad iha visyad. So that way also with special aushadhi like jnanam, dhyanam, that jiva also can become Brahma. This is the second line says, Anyasya nashas tasya dhruva bhavet. Anyasya anyatma bhavahi. If one thing changes nature to become something else, then nashas tasya dhruva bhavet. That which gets transformed gets destroyed. Without being destroyed as jiva, it cannot become Brahman. One thing cannot remain copper and become gold. The copper has to go to become gold. And what has become gold? I became gold, but there is nobody to claim that. Copper is no more there. So says Tika, Jivasya Swaviruddha Swabhavasya Anya Brahmani Eki Bhave. So Jiva is Brahma Viruddha Swabhava. Jiva is limited in every way and samsari, and therefore quite contrary to the nature of Brahman, which is ever pure, ever free, ever, limited, limitless. Anya Brahmani Eki Bhave Sati. When limited becomes limitless, then what happens? The limited and limitless, opposed to each other, they come in contact with each other to become one. Taptayo golaka pravishto bimbuvat. Tapta ayogolaka pravishta udaka binduvat. Tapta, red hot. Ayogolaka, the iron ball. Pravishta, entered. Udaka bindu, the drop of water. Like drop of water entering the red hot iron ball. What happens? Tasya nasho dhruva bhavet. Then water will completely disappear. Nasha will be destroyed. Meaning water will disappear. It won't be there anymore. When it comes in contact with it, something that is opposed in nature. The idea is, when two entities totally opposed in nature become one, then one cannot, both of them cannot remain together because they don't admit of each other. They exclude each other. Tatha cha na brahma bhava purushartha. Therefore this poor jiva becomes Brahma. What does he achieve? He is not a purushartha. He is not something that is accomplished goal, but then anarthasya. On the other hand, it has lost his life. It has not accomplished the state of being Brahman. It has gone destroyed, lost its life. So for jiva is anartha, not purushartha. But we gave you the example that we see in practical life that the copper becomes gold. What about that? Dushtantah asampratipannaha. The illustration that you gave of the copper becoming gold is untenable, is not accepted, not logical. Then Vedanta explains, these miracles. Vastrarupa abhibhavaka nilyadivata. Vastra rupa abhibhavaka. Nilyadi, like a color, such as blue, which overpowers the overpowers the cloth and makes it blue. But does the cloth get transformed to blue? What it says, so vastra abhibhavaka nilyadivat. The blue color simply hides the cloth. That's all it does. Abhibhavaka. Blue color overpowers the cloth, and therefore the cloth doesn't become blue. The blue color simply hides or veils the cloth, true color of the cloth, and makes it appear as blue. Meaning that cloth has not become blue, cloth only appears as blue. Similarly, rasa vishesasya tamarupa abhivaka matratvat. Similarly, certain rasa such as the mercury. So rasa vishesasya tamarupa abhivakatvat. If mercury is supposed to try and convert or transform copper into gold, what it does is superficially it makes that copper appear as gold. So therefore this mercury overpowers the copper, and the copperness is not destroyed, is hidden by the layer of mercury. So what is nothing but simply a plating of gold and not a transformation into gold. Like plating of cloth, not transformation of cloth. Plating of gold, not transformation of, plating of copper, not transformation of copper. Kalantare suranakarara apagamadarsanat. So in course of time, that superficial gold will disappear or will evaporate or will fade away, and the tamra, the copper, will become evident. Here also, in case of colored cloth also, in course of time, the color fades away. Tatascha brahmatram tat iti abhipraya. This is what Vedanta says. That all these miracles, in which one thing seems to be transformed to something else, it doesn't make sense. Therefore, you can create Brahma. That you can do. A magician can create, a Brahma delusion in the people, the spectators. By casting a spell, a magician can create, so a Brahma in them, and they feel that when he presents a piece of newspaper, then, this is $100 bill or something like that, that can happen. But nobody can take that piece of paper and buy anything from that. That's all it means. Nanu yadi evam anyat na dhyayam. All right, so when you are meditating, you don't meditate upon Brahman as different from you. Right? Don't do that. Swatmija dhyana na sambhavet. Now you say that I cannot meditate upon Brahman as different from me, nor can I meditate upon Brahman as myself. How can I meditate upon myself? Ekasmin dhyatru dhatru dheya bhava ayogat. Because for meditating upon something, I must become a meditator. I must become dhyata, and what I meditate upon becomes dheya, the object of meditation. So in any action, meditation is a mental action, which involves also the duality of karta and karma. I am karta, the meditator, dheya is the karma, the object of meditation, so karta, karma, and karta and karma cannot be one. Therefore, katham tari nididhyasana vidhi iti ched. And how come atma nididhyasitabhyah? That's the vidhi. You must meditate upon atma as Brahman. Ham Brahmasmi. How can it be? Because you say that Brahman is not separate from me. Brahman is myself. How do I then meditate upon Brahma? How can I meditate upon myself? How can I be both meditator and the object of meditation? If this is a question. Now we're taking that vidhi, nididhyasitabhyah. Atma vare nididhyasitabhyah. Hey Maitreyi, Atma should be deeply meditated upon as yourself. So difference between dhyanam and nididhyasanam is nididhyasana, a particular kind of dhyana or meditation, which is a meditation upon the very meditator. That's called nididhyasana. How can that happen? Anyathaya upatte natartham bhedaste. If this is a question, then anyathaya upatte, that can be understood in explained in a different way. That vidhi becomes possible when you look at it in a different way. Not in the way of becoming actual meditator and maintaining difference between the meditator and meditator. In another way it can be explained or done. Tadartham bhedaha naste. Therefore, just because the vidhi of nididhyasanam, which is a kind of dhyanam, and normal dhyanam involves a bheda between the dhyata and dhya, therefore nididhyasana also involves it. No, you should not conclude that way. Because that meditation can be explained in a different way also. Susmarata, next one says. Smarato drishyate drushtam pate chitramivarpitam yatra yena chatau gneyau sattvakshetrajna sanyakau. Smarate, smarataha, drishyate, smarataha. Now again we are going back to memory. We discussed in the previous chapter, memory, dream, etc. So in memory what happens? Drushtam pate chitram arpitam drishyate. So when you remember in the waking state, then what you remember appears like a painting on a canvas. Pate, on the canvas. Chitram iva, like the painting. So when you are remembering something, you are seeing that object of memory like you see a painting on a canvas. The canvas is the intellect, let us say, and the forms are the painting, and therefore upon intellect, different forms are seen. It's called memory. And the forms are there because they pass samskaras. Yatra yena chatau gneyau sattva kshetrajna sanyakau. Yatra where, yena by whom, tau gneyau. So, those things are to be seen. Sattva, kshetrajna sanyakau. They are called sattva and kshetrajna. Sattva means intellect. Kshetrajna means knower. So they are called sattva and kshetrajna, the intellect and the self. Yatra gneyau. Yatra where, that is in sattva intellect. Yena gneyau, by whom? By kshetrajna. So now how does this connect with nididhyasana? That, so how does Tikakara bring this kind of objections and how does it connect them? If you see these words, we don't say any kind of a connection ourselves. But anyway, Dushtam nilapitadi smarataha. So dushtam smarataha. What you have seen in the waking state. Smarana means what? Something that you have seen really. When there is the artha sanyoga is there. When the mind has sanyoga, the connection with the artha, the object, then samskara are left, and that's what comes out as memory. So dushtam nilapitadi smarataha pumsaha. What you have seen? Where did you see? In the waking state. Again, dream you are not seeing the actual object. In waking you are seeing actual object. That is why, although you can remember dream also, I guess, but anyway, then that was also seen some time earlier. So ultimately you see something that was really seen. Nilapitadi, like this color, blue, yellow, etc. Smartaha pumsaha. So a person is remembering the colors like the blue, yellow that he had seen in the past. So yatra drushtam, yatra antahkarane, tat vasana rupam drushyate. So where do you see that ghatapata that you saw earlier? Now you are seeing in your memory. Where do you see? Because ghatapata is not there in physical existence, physical sense. Yatra antahkarane smarataha pumsa. This person remembers that in his antahkaranam, in his mind. Tad vasana rupam. What he is seeing is the result of the vasana, the samskaras left by the previous experience. Pate arpitam chitramiva dushyate is seen by this one as a chitramiva, like a painting, pate, on the canvas. So this is now you have to see how when you remember something in your mind, like a ghata, like a pata, your father, your mother, your friend, anything, which you had experienced earlier. So what is the nature of the experience? It is like you are seeing a painting on the canvas. The canvas is the intellect and painting are those nila pita, colors, etc. Pate arpitam chitram drishyate, yena drishyate, yena chaitanyatmana drishyate upalabhyate. Who sees that? The self. The conscious self sees that ghatapata, etc. in the canvas of the intellect. So, this is the normal situation of the subject-object duality when you see something different from you. So, sattva kshetrajna sanjnakau. Talk of sattva and kshetrajna. That pata, the cloth on which it is seen is sattvam, the intellect, and the one who sees it is called kshetrajna. Yatra dushyate tat sattvam yen dushyate sa kshetrajna. Yatra dushyate, where it is seen is sattvam. Sattvam means the mind or intellect. So word sattva has different meaning, that is why sattva rajas tamha iti. What's the meaning? Gunaha. Sattva is not guna, sattva is not intellect. Sattva is a particular, is a technical word, in short, coined by the Sankhya's. Yena dashte sa kshetrajna itya. And the one who sees it, so etadyo vetitam prahu kshetrajna iti tadvidah. So one who knows the kshetra is called kshetrajna. So then what? What do you understand from this? Tathacha atma nidhyasa iti vidhina. So this vidhi, atma avare nidhyasatavya. The atma must be deeply meditated upon. Iti vidhina. Nairantariyena tvam padartha viveka sampadana. So when that vidhi is given, when you are told to meditate upon atma, what is exactly being told to us to do? Nairantarena tvam padartha viveka sampadana eva kartavyataya uchyate. What is meant is constantly do the atma anatma viveka. Because what you see, you are seeing nothing but a union of atma and anatma normally. When you think of yourself, when you think yourself of so and so, that so and so is an atma, and that is in the chitra, that's like a chitrapata on the intellect. So that is that viveka has to be done all the time. That look, this Purusha, Stri, Sukhi, Dukhi, happy, and all of that is anatma. That viveka, keep on negating that. What is meant by nididhyasanam is constantly negating the identification of atma. Not seeing atma. Nirantarena tvam padartha viveka sampadanam. Viveka means prasakkaranam. Tvam padartha viveka. Tvam padartha, meaning of tvam pada is Atma. So, Atma, I recognize Anatma as Anatma and keep on negating that. Because negation is give up the negating identification. Purusha I am not, body I am not, mind I am not. Nirantarena tvam padartha viveka sampadaneva kartavyataya uchyate. So if something is to be done, this is what is to be done. Then how come you don't want to meditate on Atma? Tvam artha, vivikta tvam artha seva brahmatvat. So that way, tvam artha, the Atma that is separated from Anatma in this manner. How is separation? By giving up the identification. Just called negation. So then what remains by negating Anatma is Brahman. So vivikta tvamarthasya brahmatva. Vivikta tvamartha. The tvamartha, the Atma, vivikta, that is thus separated, itself is Brahman. Aham brahmasmiti aparoksha anubhava sambhavat. And that way, aham brahmasmi aparoksha anubhava, because Brahma is aham. What creates the problem there is because of the identification, I take myself to be something else, that is why I think that Brahman is not me. So right now I think that I am not Brahman because I have concluded I am so and so. When that so and so is negated as Anatma, then what remains is I am Brahman. Because I am always there. Onto that I keep on adding something else. When I do not do, then all that remains I am, and that is Brahman. So I am is always aparoksha anubhava. And the I am being Brahman, therefore aparoksha anubhava Brahman is possible. Aham brahmasmiti aparoksha anubhava sambhavat. Aham asmi. Brahma is all right. Aham asmi is aparoksha anubhava. From aham asmi you remove what is not aham, then what? If you are able to do that, then aham asmi is Brahman. And that is aparoksha anubhava. So you don't have to create aparoksha anubhava, it is there, and you have to remove any elements arising from identification. That's what you have to do. Samsara nivritti phala siddhi. Moment you stop seeing I am a human being, sukhi dukhi, then you see yourself asti, asmi, Brahman. In that case, samsara nivritti phala siddhi. So when you see yourself that way, the elimination of samsara is the result of that. So it's not anya bhavana. This is anya nisheda bhavana. You follow? This meditation is not meditating upon something as a meditator, meditating upon what appears to be something as anatma and leaving yourself to be what you are. Anya bhavanayam tu pragutanyayana anyasya anyatmata ayogat. On the other hand, when you look upon Brahman as different from you, then pragukta nyayana, by the nyaya, the rule that was stated in the previous verse, anyasya anyatmata ayogat, one thing cannot become another one, because one thing cannot change its nature. Samsara anivrittehe, and therefore if you try to meditate upon Brahman as different from you, then the difference you accept it. The fact that you are meditating upon Brahman as different from you, that means that you accepted the duality. How will it go? And therefore, samsara anivrittehe, samsara will not be eliminated, because you are giving reality to that difference, and that will not go. Nishphalo vidhisyat. So this vidhi, atma nididhyasatavya, will not be able to eliminate samsara. If you are looking upon Brahman as separate from you and then meditating on Brahman as different from you, then by the nyaya that we said earlier, two things cannot become one, therefore that bheda will not go. So samsara nivritti will not take place. So it's not meditating on Brahma. Meditating up means removing the notions one by one and leaving Atma to be what it is, which is Brahman. Iti bhava. So to interpret this verse in this manner is something unique, I mean, this is simply saying Drugdusha Viveka. But this verse, the teacher wants to say this Nididhyasanam is... so many of the verses are like that it would be difficult to arrive at what is meant in that verse, other than simple meaning that appears to me. Antahkaranasya apratyakshatvat katham smrutyavasthayam tasmin nilapitad upalambha. Again an objection, a question. Antahkaranasya apratyakshatvat. But antahkarana is not immediate, is not pratyaksha. Katham smruti avasthayam. Therefore, in avastha, smruti avastha, in the state of memory, katham tasmin nilapita dupalam. How do you say that nilapita, etc. in the memory? That memory is accepted. In the memory, you recall the past colors, nila, pita, etc. How do you say that those nila, pita colors are like painting on the canvas of antahkarana? Because antahkarana is, you can't see. Antahkarana is not pratyaksha. Nila, pita is pratyaksha. So how do you say nila, pita and antahkarana? Antahkarana is not pratyaksha, then how can, if the canvas is not there, then how do you see this nila, pita in antahkarana? So your explanation that when you are remembering something, that memory is comparable to seeing a painting on the canvas where the canvas is sattva and the buddhi and nilapita is a painting, but buddhi is not pratyaksha. Nilapita is pratyaksha, buddhi is not. And therefore, how do you say that nilapita is in the canvas of buddhi? So therefore, that nilapita is experience in buddhi, that is katham, upalambha. How can you see nilapita and buddhi when buddhi is not pratyaksha? Nilapita is pratyaksha. Ityatah. Therefore, so just to further explore that, what was stated that how the memory is on the canvas of the intellect is further explained here or further investigated. Phalantam chanubhutam yata yutam kartradikarakaihi smaryamanam hi karmastham purvam karmaiva tatstitah tatchitah. What you are remembering has to be the same as what you experienced. Phalantam cha anubhutam yat yutam kartaradikarakaihi. Phalantam anubhutam. Concluding in phala. This karma, so there is karta, karma, phala and phalanubhava. So therefore this phalantam, the experience of phala involves kartradikarakaihi yutam. The karta, the karaka, the accessories of karta must be there. Karma, that karma means the grammar karma, So subject, object must be there, karma is object. And then kriya must be there, which connect the subject and object. And the phala is there, the result is there. So kriya is seeing, karta is seer, the color is seen, kriya is seeing, result is the sight. So this is what happens in every perception. Smaryamanam karmastham purvam karmayu tatchitah. There was smaryamanam. When you remember that nilapita also is karma, is object. And tatchitah karma. Earlier also the nilapita was the object of consciousness or conscious being. So now also they are object conscious being. So the Tikakara says phalantam. Sukhadi phalavasanam sa sukham dukhamida phalam. As a result of an experience. Kartradi karakayutam yuktam. It is endowed with the karaka accessories of kartradi, kartruadi. So kartru, karma, kriya, phalam. Yad dvaitam. So that dvaitam, puram anubhutam, yat puram anubhutam, the duality which was experienced earlier. So reminds us of what we experienced. Yat puram anubhutam, that dvaitam means that duality. What duality? The karta, karma, the subject-object duality. So object that was experienced earlier by the duality involved, that experience involves the duality of the karta and karma, drashta, drishya, bhokta, bhogya. That inayam smarimanam, that now that you are remembering that, same setup must be there now. So earlier also same setup was there, which you see now. Idayam smaryamanam karmastham dushyanistam dushyate. So now also, you see, Nilapita are also nothing but in the place of object, not in the place of subject. Not drashyanishtam. So earlier when you saw Nilapita, experienced Nilapita, they were experienced as object. So now that you remember, they are also in the place of object only, not in the place of subject. Meaning they cannot be in kshetrajna. Nilapita were in the buddhi when they were experienced. So now that you remember, they should be there only, they cannot become all of a sudden kind to the subject. The drashyanishtam. So that is logical. Because memory presupposes the experience and is in keeping with experience. If experience involves the duality of the subject object, then the memory also involves the same duality. Tasmat purvamapi, so tatsmaryamanasya adhikaranasya adhikaranam antahkaranam. Therefore, smaryamana. So what do you smaryamana? What do you see the nilapitadi? Tasya adhikaranam. At that time, you saw it in your mind. And therefore, chitaha atma karma eva dushyam. So that time it was the karma, the object of chit or the atma, conscious being. So now also, that nilapita is, the adhikaranam is the same as what it was when you experienced them. At that time, adhikaranam was antahkaranam. So now also adhikaranam antahkaranam. So when you are experiencing or remembering nilapita, you are remembering only antahkaranam, which has taken that form. So you can't say antahkaranam is not pratyaksham. Ayam bhava. Purvanubhuta vishayakara he vritti antahkaranam antahkarana parinamatmika smriti uchyate. Again reminding us what is memory. Purva anubhuta vishayakara he vritti. The vritti, the nilapita, the vritti, which is vishayakara, is what? Purva anubhuta vishayakara. The nilapita, which you remember now, as the same akara as what you experienced earlier, purva anubhuta. Antah parinatmikatma, it was parinama, the modification of anta, I mean antahkaran at that time. So the object is nilapita. Antahkaran takes the form of nilapita. So it's antahkarana parinam, that was the experience. And now you recall that, that's called smriti. Tasyami vishayo bhasmanah sashrayo bhasate. So now that you see the nilapita, that's why example was given. When you see the painting, you always see adhikaran, that is the pata or the canvas. That is where the memory is compared to a painting. You cannot experience painting without experiencing canvas. You can't say, I see painting but there is no cloth in front of me. You cannot say that. Even if cloth is not evident to you. The whole canvas is supposed completely covered by painting, so you don't see the canvas. The painting, canvas is adhikaranam of painting. So this nilapita has come to painting, so it's adhikaranam, that canvas that sattvam or the mind must be there. You don't see mind as mind, you see mind as nilapita. Tasyami vishayo bhasmana sashrayo bhasate. The Vishaya, Nilapita, the Vishaya, when you see, Sashraya, along with Ashraya you see. When you see the painting, you always see with the canvas. Thus when you see the vritti, you always see with Antakarana. Nahi tada sakshana anubhamanasya vishayasya bhaiyasya avasthanam asti. Not that when you experience Nilapita, they were in the mind. And now you see Nilapita is not in the mind. So ashraya cannot change. Therefore, mind is the ashraya and it must be pratyaksha, otherwise nilapita cannot be pratyaksha. So nilapita accepted as pratyaksha. Antah cannot accept it as pratyaksha, but antahkarana has to be experienced because it is ashraya. So sashrayo bhasate. That vishaya, nilapita, the vishaya, bhasamana, when it shines, sashra, it always shines along with the ashraya, which is now antahkarana. Like the painting shining with the canvas. Nitada sakshana anubhyamanasya vishayasya avasthanam tada tata chaidam smaramiri paramarshayogyataya dushyasthataya anubhavasya avasyam bhavad. Therefore, idam smarami, when I remember this color, nilapita, paramarsha yogyataya, that paramarsha is recalling. Dushyasthataya anubhavasya avasyam bhavad. Therefore, where you experience that, that's why I said, where you experience sattvam, that's sattasya avasyam bhavad. So without sattva, adhikaranam, the canvas, you cannot experience these objects. Paramarsha yogyata. When nilapita is paramarsha yogya, they can be recalled. Then buddhi also is paramarsha yogya, because that also is recalled. Dushyasthataya anubhavasya avasyam bhavat. Therefore, this nilapita is dushyastha, and therefore they are in the intellect, therefore without that experience cannot take place. Tada chittameva smaryamana adhikaranaya drishyate. So when you remember nilapita, the chittam as adhikaranam, as a canvas, is also seen. So when you remember something, memory is taken as an experience. As to how you can remember ghatapata of the past. You cannot remember them unless you remember the mind upon which the ghatapata, of which the ghatapata is modification. Or ghatapata is like the painting on the canvas of the mind. Iti siddham antahkaranasa sakshi pratyakshatvam. So pratyaksha is sakshi pratyaksham. Indriya pratyaksham and sakshi pratyaksham. But antahkaranam is sakshi pratyaksham, so it is pratyaksham. Therefore, in Smriti Avastha also, the Nilapita, etc. are seen along with the Antahkarana. Not in some other ashraya. You experience them in the ashraya of Antahkarana. Remember in some other ashraya is not possible. Or in the memory you see it in the ashraya of Antahkarana. In their experience they cannot be elsewhere. There should be same ashraya in experiencing as well as in memory. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.